You say the left is a cult. It's not the whole of the left. Let's be fair to it. That is a very small percentage of people. I can do the same thing with the right.
You'd be wrong. RFK Jr., former liberal. Tulsi Gabbard, former liberal. Donald Trump, former liberal. Elon Musk, former liberal. Tim Pool, former liberal. How is it that the popular vote winner, Donald Trump, was a Democrat up until his first term? I never voted Republican. I didn't like Republicans. And now the Republican MAGA movement, not the neocons, is an eclectic bunch of diverse views which debate each other. The left doesn't do that. They firebomb your buildings. Or they just don't show up. Or they try to get you fired. They SWAT you. They harass you.
You say the...
Good morning, Owasso. This is Chad with Owasso Live, and this is the Morning Loop. Well, today we're going to be talking about Tim Pool again, debating the Triggernometry guys, Francis Foster and Konstantin Kisin, and how they get it wrong. Like, just because you're a comedian with a British accent doesn't mean you're right. That's the problem with old, what's his name? John Oliver and that other, what's the other new kid that took over the Daily Show? I forget his name. But yeah, just like having an accent and talking politics doesn't make you smarter than everybody else, despite the fact that's what liberals would have you believe. But we're going to get into the whole spiel here of his argument, and we're going to get into like what I thought was the best part of his interview on the Triggernometry podcast. So I'm going to pull this up and we'll get started.
Angry at our government and our structure, they don't even want to have kids. They're advocating in media not to have kids. They're angry at structures and systems based off of a perception built by an algorithmic media machine that was simply trying to make them angry to make money. Now they live in a world of fear and hatred, pure hatred. And you ask them, why do you hate Teslas so much? 2 years ago, you told us we had to own one. Now you're firebombing them and cheering for it on TV. There's no logic behind what they're angry about. This is why I refer to the left largely as a cult. You have the people who are scared to defy it because they live in these areas and they know someone will shoot at them or smash their cars or their windows. So they put stickers on their cars. They put signs on their windows, please don't hurt me. And then you have people who just, without thought, will hate what they're told to hate and not be able to explain to you why.
But you say the left is a cult.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the whole of the left. Let's be fair to it. That is a very small percentage of people. I can do the same thing with the right. And I can say, look, the right, they're completely insane. Look at these nutbags on Twitter.
You'd be wrong.
Really?
Yeah.
Howdy. Well, while that's going on, that is 100% true. You would be wrong. And you see how he got, like, he was literally taken back by that. He's like, really? Really? Like, yeah, you would be wrong. Like, all of what he's going to talk about here in a second is like everything that the right has done, all the violence on the right is a reaction to the left's starting it. That's what always happens. The right only reacts to the left, whether it be in policies or in street violence. But we'll let him get back into it.
Jr., former liberal. Tulsi Gabbard, former liberal. Donald Trump, former liberal. Elon Musk, former liberal. Colin Wright, former liberal. Tim Pool, former liberal. How is it that the popular vote winner, Donald Trump, was a Democrat up until his first term? That Tulsi Gabbard, DNI, former Democrat, that I supported in 2020. I never voted Republican. I didn't like Republicans. And now the Republican MAGA movement, not the neocons, is an eclectic bunch of diverse views which debate each other. How is it that Charlie Kirk, Christian conservative with one of the largest conservative platforms, invites moderate pro-choice Tim Pool onto his stage for his biggest event of the year to discuss those views to the public? On the left, what do you think would happen if you went and opposed their views at a public forum? You'd be threatened with violence. And I'm not saying literally everyone all the time.
Yeah, we talked about this the other day, was if the left didn't even want to platform people on the right. How dare you platform this hateful, intolerant bigot on your show and let him get his ideas out to the world? Like, people, I mean, Jimmy Fallon ruffling Trump's hair was considered like an offense. And no other person, no other late night show personality would have him on because they were afraid of that, or they either didn't like him or they were afraid of what their audience was going to think of them. That's a problem. The left does not like to have conversations with people on the right, whereas the right will. And then when they come on, they're going to look stupid. And two, why is there no mass exodus of people on the right wing in the Republican Party and all these other places that go to the Democratic Party? It's only people from the Democratic Party coming over to the right. And we're talking about what he just talked about. RFK Jr., Tulsi Gabbard, Elon Musk. These are huge, big name personality people. Why is there no equivalent going back the other way? There never is. There never will be, because the left is insane. But we'll get back into it.
But booking liberals to come on my show or any other show, people in this
We
space,
have the same problem.
Yeah.
man.
they refuse to do it.
They don't want to talk.
Back in, I think it was 2018.
And by the way, we should say why as well. They're scared of their own side.
Yeah.
It's a cult. So I can sit in front of a libertarian like Dave Smith, who's going to rant about how Israel is bad, and Charlie Kirk at the same time, and we leave with beers in our hands, smiles on our faces. And Dave will say, Charlie, I really do appreciate it. I think you do good work. I know we disagree. The left doesn't do that. They firebomb your buildings. Or they just don't show up. Or they try to get you fired. They SWAT you. They harass you. The reason I say it's a cult is because you could not...
Exactly. They don't want to platform you at all. They don't want to give you the time of day because that is seen as heresy on their side. If you talk to somebody on the right wing, it's bad. You are a bad person for even speaking to that person, seeing that person. Like the left does not extend an olive branch ever. You can't. It's just like, that's what he said. They're a cult, or they're like a religion. They're like a religious cult. You can't communicate with non-believers.
define what they believe. It's impossible. Hassan Piker famously made a video responding to me where he said, I said the military-industrial complex is a bad thing. The U.S. imperialism imposing its will through financing. He pauses the video and he says, he's completely right on this one. I agree. And then I said, this is why I don't think Ukraine is a special case. Why the U.S. has given Ukraine more money than Israel in 2 years than Israel got in 50. And then Hassan breaks and goes, this guy actually thinks we shouldn't support Ukraine? Now be consistent, buddy. Are you concerned about U.S. imperial expansion into foreign countries? Or are you simply pretending that's the case? You could not map the logic of their principles or plan for this country.
It's about feelings.
Yeah.
100%. It's like, if you think that sending money to Israel is bad, but sending money to Ukraine is okay, you're a hypocrite. You are a complete and total hypocrite. This is the problem, is the left's like, these people we can send money to, this is okay, but you can't send money to these people. I mean, one of the best arguments I ever heard was, I forget his name, but it was a guy who was actually on the Timcast, and it was just like, the only reason the left has been pro-war every single time since the Civil War, the only war that they did not, that they opposed was Vietnam, and that's because they were defending communists. They were defending the communist idea, which the more I think about that, the more I think that that actually might be true, because they have been pro-war in every other situation. Historically, it's the right that is anti-war. The only reason that the right was pro-war during Vietnam was because, yeah, they wanted to stop the spread of communism. We think communism is evil. Communism is evil. It tries to limit the playing ground, and all it does is starve people to death and execute people for not having the good think, which is why the left wants to initiate communism, because you have to go to the gulag or you get executed if you don't believe in their political party. Re-education, I mean, that's what they want to do. I mean, they are re-educating everybody. If you have a wrong idea, we're going to send you to get re-educated. You need to go take classes and courses to get re-educated yourself on how you're being racist or whatever the heck that they're trying to do. But we'll get back into this now.
I think it is, but if you break it down, it's largely about adhering to the murmuration. The left swings around randomly in random directions. Nobody knows exactly where they're turning left or right or up or down. They're just trying to make sure they stay safely in a position where someone else won't bludgeon them in the head with a bike lock. So Tesla's a great example. 2 years ago, Stephen Colbert bragged on his show he owns a Tesla. Today, he's making jokes about how it's funny that people are firebombing them. Well, that don't make sense. You've got innocent people.
Yeah, but again, you could play this game both ways. You could say all these people used to say Trump is a loose cannon and is a crazy and whatever. Now they're all in his White House.
Some of them, but I always point to tendencies. There is.
That was very confusing right there. I'm not exactly sure what point he was making. The fact that like J.D. Vance was partially against Trump. It's the same thing with things. Like, yeah, the right has more like a diverse group of people that it brings into the fold. It's like, yeah, J.D. Vance didn't appreciate everything that Trump did, but he still joined him because he's like, I can do more good working with Trump than I can with the left. That's what's going on here. It's like, so I don't understand what point he was trying to make. Oh yeah, he brought in people that didn't like him. It's like, yeah, so it means that he's actually showed more grace and leniency to people who oppose his ideas, but are at least civil with him, than people on the left who are like, nope, we can't allow Donald Trump to work with us at all. Everything that he approves, we have to oppose. That's basically the left. It's always been this way since he got into office. And we can probably say that this is probably how the left has operated against most Republicans like 90% of the time. I remember we talk about this all the time. It's like George W. Bush was Hitler. Mitt Romney, when he was running, was Hitler. What was the other one? John McCain was Hitler. Everybody is Hitler. And then Trump came around, well, he's really Hitler. The next person who takes over after him will really be Hitler again. We will see the exact same arguments all over again from the left because they have no principles.
There is a cult on the right that Trump can do no wrong. And I've criticized these people very heavily. They attacked Joe Rogan, and I'm like, are you guys nuts? Joe Rogan's a moderate who speaks to many different people of all persuasions. Let him cook, bro. And they attacked me for it. I said, I don't give a shit. I was like, you guys are nuts. While vocal, they don't dictate. They don't control.
It's true. It's true.
On the left, you better adhere or else. So I would say, let's just try and be as fair, I suppose, and say it's 2-to-1 cult on the left and 2-to-1 not cult on the right. Maybe 30% of the right is culty, 60% of the left is culty. So even the culty elements of the right will be forced to entertain arguments they do not appreciate or like. The left does not. And more importantly, even those who...
Now, you need to talk about the reason for that is because the media, the mainstream news media, what you would call, cable news, has been predominantly left-wing. So people on the right are forced to watch left-wing news sources. That's how it's always been. The only right-wing news source that we had up until like the last 5 years now was Fox News. And that was it. Everything else, as we have come to discover now, is heavily left-wing bias. I mean, they don't even have that many Republicans in any of their workspaces. None of their none of their news article writers. Like, what is it? Like CNN only has Scott frickin' Jennings. So they have the one token Republican that goes up against all the left-wingers. And that's how all of them are. There's the one token Republican on all these places that the left-wingers all gang up on, and they can still hold their own. Great, because the right has always been able to argue the left's positions better than the left can argue the right's positions. That's why they just go to, you're racist, that's racist, or homophobic, whatever. That's what they always end up going to because they don't argue policy, they argue morals every single time. And you can argue that Fox News does the same thing. They bring on a token Democrat, but hey, when there's only one news outlet that's partially conservative does that, you can't be like, oh, Fox News is just as bad. Well, sure they are, but there's not that many Fox Newses.
Who are rather culty on the right will still try to give you a reason as to why they support Trump, the reason why they've changed their views. Oh, Donald Trump is doing something authoritarian. Well, because of this, that, or otherwise, I've changed my mind. On the left, it doesn't make sense. Famously, the Coalition for Communities of Color said Slavic people are people of color. So blonde-haired, blue-eyed Luke Rudkowski is a person of color. How does that make sense? That's the world they live in. Slavs are oppressed peoples. You get one of my favorite scandals was several years ago, the Wimixon scandal. I know you're probably saying, what is that word? Woman, where the E is an X.
Yeah.
And they said this way, we're being inclusive of all women, including trans women and women of color. Well, within a week of using this, they were attacked by trans activists because they said trans women are women. And by creating a new word, you are now arguing that trans women need a special classification. So you're transphobic.
Well, listen, man, you don't need to persuade us that the left went full retard. Like, genuinely, because we're people who always thought, you say liberal, like that's how we always thought of ourselves. And then we just looked at that and went, oh my God, what is going on? And then we got ostracized for saying that.
Exactly.
I was curious to ask you those. Do you think
even they got ostracized by the left? You cannot even talk with people or hold contradictory ideas or ideas that deviate from the left. You have to stay in the straight and narrows. Transgender, good. LGBTQ, good. Whatever else, Islam, good. You can't have any bad say about any of what we call their uplifted ones, which is usually some type of minority, community. If you have any like negative connotations of them, you're out. You can't come back. There is no forgiveness in the Democratic Party.
We were here during the election, before the election and after the election. We were there during that entire time. And a lot of people anticipated a lot of street violence, a lot of protest, and there was none of that. Like, we were in LA when the election happened, and the people we've been seeing all over the rest of the country were like, well, you guys are going in to see some riots over there. And it was chill as hell, because I just think everybody accepted the outcome. Do you not think do you think it's possible that these flare-ups, like the BLM riots of 2020, like the riots we had in the UK, these are part of living in societies that are struggling economically, they're racially mixed, et cetera, and eventually these things balance themselves out?
It's possible. Also, historically, these things turn to civil wars. So pick your history. Which one do you think is going to happen? I don't know that civil war is greater than 50%. I'm just saying that when you get all these experts coming out and saying, yikes, we're in civil war conditions. I mean, Jamie Raskin literally said a year ago that should Trump win, we will be faced with civil war conditions, and it'll be our job in Congress to tell Donald Trump, you are not eligible to be president, and deny him that. They didn't do it. I think they realized they lack the let's just say, wartime resources to actually engage in this. But I think the real reason they didn't is, as Chuck Schumer just said recently, they've planted 235 progressive judges in the federal courts in D.C. Largely with the intention of blocking Trump no matter what he does. I'm being a little hyperbolic. He said to stop Donald Trump's agenda. Now we can see the lawful exercise of power that Donald Trump is trying to use is being blocked no matter what. Ad absurdum. The president engages in negotiations with a foreign country for the extradition of non-citizen enemies of this nation, street gangs from another country that have been labeled domestic terror. The Alien Enemies Act states the president can do this. And additionally, in 1948, there was a federal court case, which ruled there is no judicial review for this process. You want to change it? Absolutely. Let's change it. I'm totally fine with that. In the meantime, Donald Trump is within his rights as the chief executive to enter negotiations with the president of a foreign country as for the deportation and transport of criminals. A lower court judge instructed him to return these people to this country, turn the plane around. Now, on the surface, the media is saying Trump can't deport. No. The judge ruled that Donald Trump must sever his negotiations with a world leader from a foreign country. Imagine it was something more serious.
Tim, can I just stop you on that? Because I was reading in a publication in the UK that the reason was because a lot of the guys hadn't been convicted of anything.
Well, they don't need to be. 1948 Alien Enemies Act precedent has already been set. There is no judicial review for non-citizen combatants under the Alien Enemies Act.
Okay.
Why do we have a president? Founding fathers were very smart. They got together and they said, should we?
The big deal too is like they see deportation as a punishment. Deportation isn't a punishment. It's literally sending you home. If going home is a punishment, there's something wrong with your home. But as we've seen, what we've been talking about with El Salvador's been cleaned up thanks to that new president or prime minister, whatever the heck they have there, has cleaned up the streets. Like, it's safe there now. And two, it's not a punishment. Deportation was never seen as a punishment by Congress or any other government offices. It's literally, we're sending you home. And two, like the people here on visas, it's like they are temporary visas. You can have things taken away from you if you break any of the country's rules. Again, if someone came into your house, you invited them over to your house, and then they came over and they just started ruining your party, breaking stuff, or protesting everything that you did, you'd ask them to leave. You can't walk into my house and just start breaking stuff, attacking people, or protesting everything that I do while you're in my house. I'm going to ask you to leave. And you and the Democrats be like, no, he should stay. He needs to be able to stay. He has free speech. She's like, yes, but not in my house, he don't. And that's how we need to start seeing this. It's like, it's absolutely ridiculous to go, they get all the laws and everything. They have to follow all the laws and stuff. We have to follow all the laws, but they don't. Like, oh, they don't have to abide by any rules or whatever. They're just innocent baby angel Aladdins that haven't done nothing wrong.
We do a representative democracy? Oh no, it's going to devolve into squabbles. You can't react properly to emergencies. Should we do a council of elders? Smart, learned men that we can appoint. Same problem. And then what if you get many tyrants and they can't agree? Should we do a king? No, we have problems with kings. And they said, let's do all three. And they can argue amongst themselves. We'll bestow specific powers among each. That way we give the strength to each. The council of elders review the process of both and determine whether or not they can or can't as a Supreme Court. Representative democracy will determine the laws of this country. The executive will handle war and the upholding of our laws. Each has the ability to check the other in one way or another. As it pertains to foreign military actions, the president has plenary powers, but he can't declare wars. He can't set the budget for wars. He can simply direct how we engage with what Congress determines. If Congress passes a law, say, creating the Department of Education, and they say the function of the Department of Education shall be A, B, and C, the president cannot dismantle it through executive order. The president can, however, instruct the people who are working there to stop using computers and to juggle bowling pins instead, which would effectively shut down Congress's attempt. That's one way they can check that power. In issues of foreign policy first, the problem we have in this country is we haven't declared war since World War II. Congress has effectively given the executive branch carte blanche, which has been a big mistake. But now we're dealing with Trend Iraga, we all know is a problem. I believe there should be transparency, but these people got the due process they deserve through our system. Trump needs to prove to the public these are the people we claim they to be, because we don't want Trump to round up random people and lie about it. Corrupt people can do that. However, what's happened with these court rulings, it is not a question of can Trump do this? It is a question of should we continue to do this? So the actions Donald Trump took are permitted, and a judge tried to sever a binding international negotiation. If Donald Trump went to Netanyahu right now and said, stop bombing Gaza, or we will pull all military assets from Israel and cut your funding tonight. And then Netanyahu said, no, we're going to double the bombings. Trump then says, load up our planes, send our boys home. Imagine what would happen if a lower court city judge banged the gavel and said, cancel Trump's negotiations. Netanyahu, return all the military assets to Israel so they can continue the bombing campaign. Completely undermining our ability to negotiate. A better example would be Trump and Putin. Trump goes to Putin and says, we're going to end the war in Ukraine tonight. You are going to withdraw from the Donbass. Putin says, only if you remove all military assets and support the Ukrainians. Trump says, done. Then a lower court judge bangs the gavel and says, Trump has no authority to do this. The war remains. If that were the case and that were possible, no world leader would ever negotiate with our president ever again. It would require the executive branch to get permission from lower court judges, putting the executive branch underneath the judicial. But a better example.
Yes, that is 100% true. Why on earth no country would ever take us seriously ever again if Trump had to ask permission, or a president had to ask permission from a lower court judge to do any type of negotiations with a foreign leader. Like, this is the problem, is Democrats are literally setting themselves up for failure for in the future when they get back into power, when they get a Democratic president, and then all the Republicans have these lower court judges to start submitting appeals and be like, nope, can't do that. That's illegal. You're going to shoot yourself in the foot. This is what the Democrats do. They always shoot themselves in the foot by starting some type of crap like this, because we've set a precedent, so we can do this now. And then when the Republicans use it against them, they go, how dare they? This is evil. How could they ever do something like this? Just like, what are you talking about? You started it. It's the same thing we was just talking about with him, Trump having his lawyers arrested. Like, you have set precedents for arresting lawyers that are trying to protect their clients. No one's ever going to want to be a lawyer ever again if we start arresting lawyers for the same crimes as their freaking clients. Like, Mr. Lawyer, you're going to get charged with aiding and abetting for this murder, serial killer, or rapist, or whatever. You're going to be charged for aiding and abetting if you lose this case. And you're just like, well, I don't want to do that. No one's ever going to defend anybody as a lawyer ever. You're going to literally, courts are going to turn into self-defense court trials. That's all it's going to turn into. This is going to be absolutely insane, and the Democrats are the ones that have set this up. And you can't pretend like it was Republicans. Republicans did not do this. Nobody went up to Trump. Joked about going after Hillary Clinton. He never did. Now that they went after him so hard, even after his presidency, yeah, he's kind of going back after him. Like, yeah, we want to see what's going on here. But I mean, just like the Democrats started this. Again, the right only reacts to the left. The right does not start this type of nonsense. The left does. And the right reacts to it. And then the left pretends like, how could they do this to us when they started it? It's absolutely insane.
Example in all this is that Donald Trump, as the commander-in-chief, determines who is fit to serve and who serves. He signed an executive order saying, I'll give you the simple version. If you are suffering from gender dysphoria and exhibiting symptoms, you are barred from service in the military. If you are suffering from gender dysphoria and showing no symptoms, you are fine. We'll give you exceptions. Judge Reyes in D.C. ruled Trump cannot discriminate against anyone for any reason. I'm not kidding. Literally, the injunction was preliminary, so it has changed in the past few days. The initial injunction stated, quote, all means all. And anybody, that's actual quote, go in and say, anybody who wants to enlist should be allowed to. This means that bipolar manic paraplegics should be brought into basic training. That makes no sense. Or someone suffering from bulimia who's in basic training and decides after chow hall, I'm going to vomit all over the floor, must be affirmed in their mental disorder. That's psychotic. And a lower court ruled the president must have them serve his army? That makes no sense. The president could simply say, sure, they're in the military, and now I'm going to go order them to sit in a warehouse in the back corner where they can't do anything. The president can do that. So it looks like, to go back to the initial point, one of the scenarios that I believe is possible, of course, is that we're on the back end of whatever this cold civil war is. The administrative forces that have been seeking to obstruct the MAGA movement, the populist movement, are weak and being crushed. That's why there were no riots after Trump won in 2024. There's just no energy for it, and people are actually fed up with what the Democratic administration had been bringing us. Now what we are seeing is the first order in Star Wars. The Empire's gone, but there still are angry remnants that don't want to give up the fight. I'm hoping throughout the next couple of years, the judges either get impeached or stop and give up. The activists decide the violence isn't worth it. Trump starts arresting these people. The swatters get hunted down by Dan Bongino. The Tesla attacks result in 20-year prison sentences. And then in 2 years, everything looks kind of like 1997. That may be the case. And I hope it is. Civil strife sometimes doesn't turn to civil war. I'm hoping that's where we are.
Back when we launched up.
Yes, that is Very well put. That's why I like to watch Tim Pool. Everything is very well put. And that is 100% true. It's like the reason why we didn't see that many protests is here's another reason too is like protesters are fair weather fans. Protests come in good weather. Protesters do not show up in cold or inclement weather. That's why we didn't see that many protests during Trump's inauguration, because it's cold. Protesters are fair weather fans. They will only show up when the weather is good. I mean, the fact that we showed that one Vine, or not Vine, but short or whatever not too long ago of Democrats literally handing signs to drug addicts. That guy that was literally passing out, standing up, holding a sign that said, tax the rich or whatever it said, or stop deportations. Literally passing out. He was standing up with the sign like that. Because it just tells you, it's like that guy wasn't there for the protest. He was just around, and the Democrats handed him a sign. That's literally what's going on now. Absolutely ridiculous. But there was another time that that things got a little heated during the debate. And I'm not going to go into that one nearly as much, but I'll just play a little short from it. And it was him talking about Civil War, about how the American Civil War, how people didn't think that it was actually a civil war, and like they couldn't get that. It's like, we don't understand. Like I said, they say the Civil War, we hindsight retrospectively know that they say the Civil War started at Fort Sumter. Nobody else believed that at the time. If you go back and read newspapers and articles from that time, nobody thought the Civil War would actually started. They just thought, we're just like, oh, that's just them trying to be tough, elephant walk each other. That's all it was. And then all of a sudden the Civil War actually breaks out and gets crazy. And then everyone's like, oh, I guess we are in a civil war. Nobody, that's the thing. We know where the Civil War starts in hindsight, but when during that time, nobody knows when the war is actually started. That's the point he's trying to get across. And they just don't get that. But, it's also because I don't think the UK's really ever had, a recent time civil war. You could argue, with the whole Scotland and, Irish, revolts or whatever. You could kind of argue that they had some, but nothing in recent history, really.
Started with the Battle of Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Several states, 7, seceded from the Union before Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated as president. He won the election. 7 states, slave states, said, this man is going to abolish slavery, which will damage our economy, and we have a right to own slaves, blah, blah, blah. So we are seceding now. Abraham Lincoln didn't obviously want the Union to break apart. So they tried to maintain federal military bases in Southern Territory. Notably in South Carolina, there's Fort Sumter. The Union occupied it. South Carolina said, we are no longer part of your Union. Take your troops and go. The North said, no, we won't do that. So the South shows up with a bunch of ships. It's considered the first battle of the Civil War, despite the fact that no one killed each other. One guy died. It was an accident. Historically, we say Civil War began on that day. However, at the time, nobody thought a civil war had started. The American Civil War started with the Battle of Fort Sumter in South Carolina. Several states, 7, seceded from the Union before Abraham Lincoln was inaugurated as president. He won the election. 7 states, slave states, said, this man is going to abolish slavery, which will damage our economy, and we have a right to own slaves, blah, blah, blah. So we are seceding now. Abraham Lincoln didn't obviously want the Union to break apart. So they tried to maintain federal military bases in Southern Territory. Notably in South Carolina, there's Fort Sumter.
Yep, repeated right there. Some of those ones that you can't really tell where they repeat at. But yeah, it's like nobody thought that the Civil War had started at Fort Sumter. But in your history books, Civil War started at Fort Sumter. They didn't think that. A lot of people didn't think that. And remember, news traveled a lot slower back in the day. It takes weeks to get notification that the war had even started. And when the war ended, like with Juneteenth, the whole thing is like the last slaves were notified on Juneteenth that the war was officially over and that they were all free. Like, yeah. Nobody thought that a civil war was going on for a long time. Very long time. But that's really about all I've got for today. This is Chad with Owasso Live. This was the Morning Loop. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you too can stay in the loop. But that's really all I've got for today. I'll play you out with another little video from Tim Pool talking with them, but that's really all I've got for today. I'll see you later, everybody.
Trump's not invoked the Insurrection Act in his first term to stop the riots. Trump didn't order federal authorities to go round up these far-left extremists. Trump didn't order U.S. attorneys during his first term to start arresting lawyers and journalists or anything like this. When Trump gets out of office, they continue to pursue him, accuse him of insurrection, lie about what happened on January 6th, and then started criminally charging his lawyers, notably Jenna Ellis, who I'm not a big fan of. She cried on camera saying, "I'm so sorry for working with Donald Trump." She's just a lawyer. What was she accused of? She drafted letters for the president, which is a legally, constitutionally protected service. You can't criminally charge lawyers. Everyone's entitled to have a lawyer. They did in Georgia. And they tried to put her in prison for decades under RICO charges, claiming that because she represented Trump, she was involved in a criminal conspiracy. Trump's not